Okay,
And
yeah,
there's
recording.
two different ways to do it. One is the Zoom recording, and the other is if you go into Filmora and you open up record screen and then go to the microphone. And what I do is I have to press, what is it? It's like aggregate. Do you have that as an option?
Aggregate?
Yeah. Like if you
Like
go in your,
content?
if you go into the microphone, there's a drop down arrow and it'll give you different microphone options.
No, when I click on the microphone, oh. No,
There's not, what does it say in the drop down?
there's no drop down. It just
For the
needs,
microphone?
yeah. Are you talking about on Zoom?
No, in Filmora.
Oh, okay, one sec.
Yeah, I would do is have one of you do a screen recording for Filmora.
I'm doing Zoom.
And that's great. And you do Zoom. That works. That works. But sometimes there's issues with one particular version.
I was like, I want to meet with Dave, so like we're all clear. Like there's not like any.
I love it. I like it. And then, yeah.
Should I call back on my computer so I could try to do it? Because I have Filmora Go, but I can't figure out how to do it on there.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Hey. So what is she doing it on her computer or her phone? I didn't
Gonna
catch
go
that.
through her computer. She was on her phone.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna check if Zave's available, if we can just do it. Like, I'm gonna leave it a little bit too, but I was like, I'm gonna just see if he has time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I've been thinking about trying to meet with you all, so nice just to touch base.
I know that's what I was hoping too, because like I understand it, but sometimes yeah, it's kind of harder to understand when it's kind of just reading it. So I just
Sure.
talk in person, make sure like that we were all okay. But yeah, I think everything so far is becoming really good. And I was like, that's good that you booked ahead of time because towards like Monday and Tuesday, that's where everybody's gonna.
Yeah. So you've just had the one meeting?
And then I got that one for Monday already.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not on my computer, but I'm using a screen record app. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, that works. Sometimes you have to make sure that it's recording
The mic.
what's coming through on your computer and your voice. And then if you play anything like a video, that it will record that too. And so that's why I use the drop down arrow choice of aggregate, because it records all the different sources of audio. Because
Oh,
I've done this before, and then I played something as an example on my computer, and then it didn't record any of that sound. And I was like, no.
yeah. Okay. I'm trying to do my computer still, but for some reason my screen's not loading, so I just didn't want to hold the meeting super long. So,
Okay.
but I'll try to get my computer loaded in the meantime.
Okay. So let's see. All right. I don't know if you two run into this, but I have a Mac with very low hard drive storage. And so I wind up with all these media projects maxing out my storage all the time.
That's my storage right now. My drive is like, you're full. So I'm deleting a lot of like from my old my
Yeah.
to make storage.
And then, I don't think I have it over here. I got a Toshiba external drive where I'm saving everything now, because I just don't have enough on my own computer, even with constantly deleting everything and putting it in the cloud.
See a lot of stuff that it kind of.
All right, well, let's see. You're recording on Zoom, right, Gracie? Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So the first question for this small group communication presentation was, do the students need to basically create a documentary film where they capture all of the moments, or do they just put in some highlights? And the answer is just put in some highlights, you know, and those could come in the form of photographs. They could come in the form of, you know, little video clips. In the past, with doing some of these projects, I've had students work with mental health patients who have confidentiality, and I've had them work with little kids. And so sometimes students will have people that are not, that they're not going to be able to share photographs of. And so this will be a big thing. They don't get a free pass on the vision section, or on the sharing the photos and the visual aids, but they're going to have to instead share photos like of themselves leading, right? So so let's say, Raven, you were working with somebody in a totally different project, and it was like somebody that had confidentiality. You're not going to say their name, right? You're not going to show photos of them, but you could show a photo of yourself leading that person, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So and I just bring that up because if you, I keep trying to scroll on my screen here, but if you scroll down to the visuals there, you'll see that, you know, visuals need to be included. So if somebody just doesn't do that section, that's gonna, you know, take a big chunk out of their grade there. So I would just be ready to help people think about creatively, how could they share photos or images, but still keep people's privacy and confidentiality if that's an issue. Most people, truth be told, love sharing photos of themselves and family and all the people that participate. Half the time they're hilarious, so they can be a lot of fun. So I have one where I did the marshmallow tower with students in the classroom, and in that Palmer Martin building, and one group, they were so like, we're gonna win. All three groups were just like, we're gonna kick your butt, we're gonna win. And this one group, they had a nice tall tower, and then they put the marshmallow on, and it just went all the way down, and it actually went lower than the table.
They got a little.
So it's, yeah, so they were all just cracking up over that. But photos like that will actually help the students tell a story, right? Because they can say what happened in that key moment. Another group in that class, they knew they were close to winning and they had a really good tower, but this other group had gotten just maybe that much higher than them. So they're just like, should we take a chance? Should we take a chance? Should we make it just that much taller? And then they did, and the things started coming sideways, and they're trying to do all this stuff. And so there's this photo where you can kind of see that moment happening. And sometimes students have problems kind of getting into the details with their explanations, but if you have a photo of a key moment, it kind of helps you to explain it, and it makes it more interesting too, just for the person that's learning about what happened. So anyway, other questions?
Yeah, so
Go right.
so overall in the presentation, like from what I'm understanding, that needs to be in the recording is like an explanation of the project and kind of including your four like questions, the vision, the problem solving, adoption, leadership. Okay, so that, and then just have a visual in it.
Yeah, Yeah, so you would use visuals for each of those sections.
Okay, like a different visual for each one?
Truth be told, what I do is I say by the end of the project, was there a nice use of visuals? Was there a good use, a wide variety of use of visuals? And so it's going to be kind of up to the student for where they're going to put them in and how they're going to use them. So I'm not planning to go through necessarily each section and saying, was there a visual here? Was there a visual here? Was there a visual here?
Okay.
But just by the end, I want to know that they used visuals and that the visuals actually did something to further their explanation, right? It's kind of like, it's no good to have a visual that you don't use to further your explanations.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. And one more question I keep getting is, how long does it have to be? Is there a certain amount of time?
They're usually about 3 hours long.
Cool.
3 hours.
Yeah, you two all have no problem with that, right?
You're
You
good.
look worried, Gracie.
So documentary it is.
Yeah.
It's all my life story in it.
Yeah, I think if it's 4 to 7 minutes, that's probably a pretty good range. So, and truth be told, I'm more concerned that people are developing the content fully. So I would have people focus in on developing the content fully. If it's not at least 4 or 5 minutes, though, my thought is it's probably not developing that content in a very full way. So what I would worry about would be if someone didn't go into depth with their explanations and examples. But as soon as you go into depth, it's just going to take, more time. So if you were to, for example, I'll ask you to, have you come across a particular small group or leadership principle that you think is especially applicable to your project?
Never thought of that.
Let me look at them real quick.
And by that, I'm just talking about what's in your book here, right? So I just happen to have the book right here. So if you go through and you look,
vision, problem solving, leadership.
yeah. And honestly, it could be any of those kinds of things. And I would say let's just start with vision, and maybe you'll have something to add to this. So you had a vision, Raven, right? Where I had more of a blind spot, because you're saying Facebook page, it's important. And I'm like, really? Why's that? And you're like, let me tell you why. So then you had a vision, right? And so then what I would say is read through the chapter on having a vision and think about what are the ideas in there that kind of match up with what was going on in your head in the conversation that we had and what you saw. Okay.
Okay, so we want to include that in the video?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Really them detail with their answers. Like not just like a simple, but you want full like on details.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you had this vision, Raven, and then you had to get me on board, and then you had to get Gracie on board, and then Jace. And what's that?
I was like, I was all for it.
Were you? Why is that?
Because there's a, I don't know if have you heard, it's called the YBCC book swap page.
Yeah.
It has, I don't know how many members, and people use it. Like still today I get notifications because I've commented before, but people are,
Right.
how's this teacher? Does anybody know how this teacher is? Or like, how's their work?
Hmm.
I'm selling books. Does anybody have a book? Like, they're like all communicating because they're all looking for certain items, or even just to know about how a teacher is.
Nice. So what I would say for you two then is, and you did a whole assignment, right, with workshopping your vision, developing it. I gave you that whole list of questions in there, and that was based very closely on what was in the chapter. So does anything stand out from that particular assignment to you that you remember that kind of matches up with your vision?
The one from yesterday?
Yes.
Mm. Well, I think there's already been a challenge faced, which would be just like Jace mentioned, like professionalism
Okay.
and like wanting to do something completely different. But I think the challenge was sticking with we have a vision and like, but taking into consideration his concerns, like making sure we now assign a role that will be in charge of making sure it stays professional, that will make sure like,
Okay, nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that was a challenge, and I think that was even like problem solving, more
Yep.
problems. But I was glad he brought
Nice.
it up, even though I was almost tempted to like change the whole thing. I'm like, shoot, I doubted the whole thing for a second, but then I was like, no, like we do have. It comes back to we have a vision, and like there's other reasons we want it, So, but just working to adapt to that was like it was already a challenge, and I was like, yeah. So
So what I'm picking up,
Already.
well,
Me and Raven had like zoomed because how we wanted to talk about these questions, and like we came up with kind of like little solutions to try to make it as more professional as it is, like not use our personal Facebook account, if that makes sense, but just make separate ones
right.
for that page, just like tutor accounts, not like using our personal Facebooks, just because we don't want to get that mixed up, like our personal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. And I've seen a good communication center Facebook page somewhere. I think it was for quite possibly North Carolina in Greensboro. And I don't remember if it was for the communication studies department or if it was specifically for the communication center, but included um, the communication center stuff in the comm studies department. But I guess what I'm saying is when you're trying to make it both personal and professional, go ahead and look at some other examples and that might help you out. So, but if we kind of go back to this, hey, what do we put in the presentation? How do we write about it? How do we get it to be, let's say 6 minutes long? Well, you do that by basically going into some detail on things. And so if you recount the conversation you had with me, Raven, right? Because I kind of challenged you a little bit on, well, why do we really need this? And you had an answer. And then Jace challenged you too a little bit on how are we going to make this professional? So mine was, do we need it? His is, how is it going to be professional? And so you're kind of going back to your vision there. And how about this? Since we're focused on this so much, why don't you, Gracie, go back to those questions on the vision assignment? Because this is actually pretty important because it'll help us. And do either of you two have your textbook on you?
I'm really close to it. I'll grab it.
All right.
This one, right? This one, right?
Right. Yep, that one. All right, so yeah, right there. So it says, Okay, visualize positive outcomes. What is your hope? So if you if you open up that vision chapter, somewhere early on in the chapter, it should talk about, visualizing positive outcomes. And so one thing you could do in your presentation is to start with, hey, this is the outcome I was hoping for. So Gracie, you had your vision, your hope. Raven, you had your vision, your hope. Sounds like they kind of merged pretty quickly. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like you both kind of had a quickly shared vision. And sometimes that happens when people have kind of a similar background. Like, did both of you already use Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So then that helps bring that together. Whereas I've used other things, but not Facebook very much. So then I would say in your presentation, report on what your initial hope was for the positive outcomes. And then you kind of can talk about the vision and the problem solving all at once, because I challenged you, Jace challenged you, and then how do you respond to that? That kind of goes with number 2, which is how can you communicate that hope or goal? Well, I think that all goes together. And then you had asked me in an email, Raven, kind of like, what do you mean by how do you begin with the end in mind? That's really saying, what's your hope by the end? Like right now, it's a brand new project. We don't have a Facebook page. You just have the idea of it. So what are you hoping, say, by fall quarter, there's this Facebook page? What are you hoping that it does? I would call that hope the end. And then you kind of have the, what are each of the steps you have to get to that end? So, but it's important to remember what that end goal is, right? Because you were saying when Jace was talking to you about professionalism, you started questioning yourself or doubting yourself. And that's where you kind of have to hold on to what your initial vision is, so you don't forget.
Yeah.
All right. So any thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, just kind of like putting everything together that we've done, like on the question project, and then in the like on the part where we actually turn it in, adding that into it, making sure we have visuals to go with what we're saying. Yeah.
Oh, so you're going back to basically the criteria for the presentation?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just saying overall.
Okay. Yeah. So let me skim this real quick, because we'll go back to that in a second. Then I would say look at number 5 for a second, or actually number 4, and then we'll do 5. So number 4 says, create a picture of a future that is better than the status quo, the current norm. You can use images and or detailed descriptions. So I think you could find a direct quote on that in the vision chapter, and then maybe find an example of a communications center Facebook page that you like, or maybe even a writing center Facebook page that you like. Does YVC have a writing center Facebook page?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they do.
Swap page. That's the only one I ever came across.
What's that?
I think the only type of like Facebook thing like that was just the YVCC book swap.
Okay. So look a little closer, because I have a memory of them putting something up in my classroom that was like an advertisement for that Facebook page. So I think it's out there. But that could kind of help create a picture of what the future is you're going for. Number 5, what would it look like and feel like to have people working productively towards your common goal? So each of these are things just to think about. And then you're talking about professionalism. That's where number 6 comes into mind. Things like rules and procedures and values, things like that.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go back to the presentation directions page, because Raven was asking a little bit about the different sections.
So I also have a question about that. So when we have to post them, can me and Raven post the same thing? Or do we kind of
All
have
right, that is the big question. So are you ready? So the question, if I'm hearing you correctly, is can both you two who basically consist of a group in the class post the exact same presentation, or do you need to post individual presentations? Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. So what I've done in the directions is I have put it so that each individual person will create their own video. And the reason why I've done this is that if you go back to that best of groups, worst of groups discussion at the very start of the class, always, 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 there are people who have had bad experiences with social loafing or hitchhiking, people that are in a group that just plain don't do the work and sometimes get the credit. And so my thought is that by requiring everyone to post the presentation individually, kind of created individually, it gets rid of that social loafing problem. Everybody has to do the same amount of work.
Mm.
Okay. Also, this class is fully online, and so it might be difficult for people to collaborate, share media files, figure all that out. Now,
Yeah.
with all of that being said, the other day I had someone email me from the class and ask the same question, and I basically said what I just told you, but then I took it a little bit further and said, you know what? In my public speaking classes, people do group projects all the time. Lots of times it works out just fine. And the ultimate goal of this particular project is for you to actively apply the concepts to your experience. And so if I allow you to work together and basically make the same project, it forces you to make a decision. So I can turn it over to you, and this is what I'm going to do. So Raven, Gracie, to answer your question, it's up to you, okay? If you decide you want to work on this together, talk through it, figure out what your roles and responsibilities are, figure out how you're going to balance it all out, because I don't want you hating each other at the end. If you're like, that Raven, she flaked out on me and I did all of the work. Okay. So I don't think that's going to happen, right? So, but you kind of want to talk through things and make sure you're both on the same page and that you're okay with all of that. And the other thing is that people in the group need to make equal contributions. So let's say if Raven, you're on camera 90% of the time, and Gracie, you're only on camera 10% of the time. Probably won't seem like an even contribution. If you think it is, then let me know. You know, in your presentation, you could talk about how you collaborated. And if you had some way of balancing it out, but with different roles, you could talk about that. Maybe one person was on camera a ton and the other person did a ton of the editing, right? So maybe it balances out that way. Okay. So did I just confuse you more, or did I Did I help you out?
No, I got it. Just like, making sure like that me and her are on the same page if we do the same, and like just make
Mm-hmm.
we give the roles that we need, like equal
Mm-hmm.
roles.
Yep.
Doesn't feel like they're doing more than the other.
Exactly. Now, with Tuckman's stages of group development, you might have watched a video, or maybe you'll watch it in a bit, where they talk about you can make a charter, and basically that's a written agreement. So let's picture you have 4 people in a group, and these are students that you're helping, right? And they ask you, well, can we just do one video? Can we all collaborate on this? If they're going to do that, they need to, or they should write a charter that basically says, hey, this is what the norm is, these are what the expectations are, and if somebody doesn't do their share, if they don't do what they said they were going to do, this is what's going to happen. Maybe you kick them out of the group, maybe you recommend to the teacher that they get a lower grade. They've got to figure out what that is, hopefully ahead of time. And yeah, it gets really tricky when people do it that way. So
Yeah, I actually had a group that is working together, and they're doing their video together.
Okay.
But they're all individually recording stuff,
Okay.
but just adding it together. But she told me that her group is working really well together, and they're all really
Nice.
yeah. So I thought you could. Well, I guess you did say we could put them together as long as everybody's working good together, which
Exactly.
and
And
all
that they agree upon that as a group. So, and my thought is, if I lead with everyone do your own version, that's kind of a safer default. But if a group wants to collaborate so much, then maybe that'll work out. Were you just saying something, Gracie?
Is it freezing for you guys, or is it just mine?
Uh,
Or like the sound like going a little.
it froze for maybe 5 or 6 seconds, it looked like.
Okay, just making sure. I didn't know if it
But mostly good.
okay.
Mostly good. All right, other questions? This is great, by the way. I'm glad you're asking me all this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page. I didn't want to give them like the wrong information.
Right.
Make sure like I got in touch. Like, and then
Right.
I contact Raven to just make sure, and then I kind of just emailed her like who I worked with, just a little bit more information that I forgot to say. Just
Okay.
but so now I know it, like I understand like everything.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
And if you get people asking you about if they can just all do the same presentation and turn that in, I would say the way to phrase it to them is kind of the initial thing, or the default answer is do the project on your own. But if your group sits down and everybody kind of agrees to do it in a collaborative way, and they set what the expectations are for if someone's not pulling their weight, then that'll be okay. But they need to go through that agreement process.
Like they need to come first.
Yeah, they need to do that first.
They don't say, oh, they didn't do nothing, but
Exactly.
so they can't get really mad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be really complicated with sharing media files, because everybody's got to get all of them all together, and then they all have to edit, or one edits. I don't even know how they would do it, but I'm going to definitely suggest that to one of the persons I was tutoring, because to make an agreement and to be aware of the things that are going to come up that could stop them or make challenge that may not be easily fixed. So
yeah, if you can kind of predict some of those things, that'd be great. Also, here's a little project for you too. if you could go through the SLC videos, for example, I'm picturing the one that was on how to share large media files. If you could go through and pick out maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the ones that you think are going to be most useful, you know, please do that, and then email that to me with like a one sentence or 2 sentence description of why you think it would be useful, and then I'll send that out in an announcement to everyone, like, hey, go watch these videos and they should help you out. And you can see here, this one's on sharing large media files, you know.
Yeah, and the only thing we had for that is Google Drive, because I came across that question today and I was like, oh, how are they even going to do this? But Google Drive is like the only way I have been able to find besides
Right.
like YouTube link. So
Okay.
yeah, so they could definitely run into some problems with that, but
Yep.
yeah, but I can do that.
Any other questions here?
Do you think you can like send a message to everybody about the YouTube link? Because I sent the link to the person I work with because I told her about it. But I feel like maybe so like they make sure that they
To
have
the
that.
SLC channel?
Yeah, well, like to your class, like to the
Yeah,
class.
I did that.
Okay, good. Because
I
like
did that. Yeah.
easier, because like I told her about it and I kind of just said like type of videos there were, because she was like, oh,
Yeah.
like know about editing. She's like, telling me, and I was
Yeah.
like, we have some like help and clips and some free ones you can use on your phone, some you can do on your computer,
Yeah.
which you're comfortable working with. So she said she would check it out.
So why don't you go into announcements there, in case you didn't see this. Let's see.
Is it this one?
Try the ASAP one, the third one down.
This one. Okay.
Yep, that one. All right, go ahead and scroll on down. So there you can see there's the link. Yeah, I sent one of the videos, but I was basically telling them to go check it out. And I guess my thought is, if they were to go to this one video here that's on the different free editing apps, then they could see the other ones. But sure, Gracie, I think if you each send me a few of the videos that you think would be most helpful for them, I will also include the kind of the homepage link too. So, and then I recently sent everyone's hours too. So cool. So that's it for announcements. Any other questions? How about for you two? Do you have any questions for your particular project?
Oh, I was just thinking, so you want us to have it done by the end of this project, right? Like we want the finished project to be done.
Well, that is actually a really good question. And the kind of the true answer for what happens is it kind of depends on how big your project is. Okay. So I think most people in the class, probably everybody for the project that they're doing, they should be able to get it done. With my face-to-face class, I've sometimes had people come up with such huge projects that they get to a really good stopping point and they reach some level of like actual real success, but they keep working on the project even after the quarter's over. So
Mhm.
with the Facebook page, you know, you might think through what are the different milestones. You know, I think I'm gonna put it to you then. Do you think you can get it all done? Or do you think there are parts of your vision that would take more than basically a week more uh, worth of time?
I feel like we can get it done, but like it's gonna take time to like grow the page, I guess you could say.
Exactly,
Because like I want
exactly.
to like I want to grow it to the point where it's not just communication students, it's like students that, because like when I had nutrition, I had to present and I came into the studio to like practice with my group. And I was in
Right,
a communication class, but it was like there's probably students who need help speaking out in public or need help recording or maybe just want to practice it and delete it right after. And I think
right.
I like that for.
Okay, cool. So, um, couple of thoughts on that. One, I agree with you that it may take longer than a week to get 4,000 followers, right? um, so if that was part of your vision to like really be in touch with the student body and have thousands, sure, that can take a while. But just to launch the page and have it look professional, I think that should be doable, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just to start it off. And then,
Yep.
and the good thing is that after it's done and people watch it, they can go right after watching it, they can go subscribe to it and they can be part of it. That's a little, growth at a time. Uh,
Nice. Exactly. And it'll be a funny thing because we have to be a little bit intentional with how we grow things because we want enough people using the center that you tutors are all very busy helping people, but we don't want so many people, right, that we can't keep up with it unless suddenly we can hire like 20 tutors and then go from there. So,
Yeah.
all right. Other questions?
good.
No.
All right. So I think this is what I would like you two to do. I think this little recording could be very helpful for students and for myself. So I guess send me a media file with it. It doesn't need to be on YouTube, just that whole uh, file. And then I guess I could play around with it or maybe later have you all play around with it and kind of like get it to
Amazing.
just the highlights. And actually, you know what I think I'm gonna do, Gracie? If you're so send me the file, you know, today, hopefully. And then maybe cut it, you know, send me the original file, save it, but see if you can cut it down to like a highlights version that's maybe less than 5 minutes for sure in terms of what you think would be the most helpful explanations and parts of the discussions for students. And maybe then we can post that for the students.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. And if it turns out to be 60 seconds, it's 60 seconds. But if it's 5 minutes, then that would be good too. All right. Awesome. Very excited. Very happy that you made this happen.
And I just wanted to make sure like I didn't want to give someone like the wrong idea because obviously
Exactly.
in the class in a way, yeah, we're probably still kind of confused. So I just wanted to make sure like we got it all cleared.
Nice.
We get more.
Nice. Right. That makes sense. So, you know, you saying that you didn't want to give people the wrong idea, that you want to make sure to help them be on track. It just kind of reminds me that with the communications center, I think it is important to keep kind of training people and mentoring them. And it's important that you ask questions. And, you know, if I meet with you two and we make a recording and it gets passed on to the other tutors. That's a good way of getting everybody to be helpful. So there are conferences for communication centers that will be online. And so this particular recording is something that we could probably get a short edited version like I was talking about, do a little write-up, and then set it in, and you could get published for real. So you might have seen that I sent a while ago that they're very actively looking for essays that are 800 to 1,000 words. And so if you could kind of say something about, I don't know, what your vision for setting up the Zoom meeting was, and hey, here's this video that goes with it, and maybe take some quotes. And you know, like in a play, you have he said this, she said that. If you had some of that in there, the comm journal would probably love it. And then when you, I don't know, apply for a scholarship at a four-year school, you can say, oh yeah, I was published, give me that scholarship. I'll be a good student. Who knows? It's just the kind of thing that I think would be of value to people.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So are we good to go, or did you have any more questions?
We're
Good to go.
Good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
I just
Bye.
stop recording, right? I'm gonna record it. Okay, I'm just gonna put stop recording.